Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Mr. and MS. I think I said to you previously that one of the things I wanted to talk about was managing the change with MS, and really when I talk about that, it's trying to think about the things that you need to be aware of and need to try and future-proof your life about as much as possible so that when the changes come about in your condition, you can actually still continue to function as best as possible and that you can still have the support around you to allow you to keep on living as normal a life as you can. So I think really what I'm talking about the transition is, if you're lucky, and I do use that term in inverted commas, if you're lucky enough to start off with relapsing remitting MS, after a while, and they say it can be 10 to 15 years, but it can vary from person to person, you may start to stop having relapses and you may move into a more progressive phase of the disease. And this, as you know, if you've done a bit of research, will involve not having relapses where perhaps you are ill and you lose functionality, you have big flare-ups, things happen, and then you recover. Maybe you take some steroids or you just rest, and then you get back a little bit of what you had, but not everything. Instead of being in that relapsing remitting phase where you go down and then recover and then carry on and then go down and then recover, you end up in a situation where you start to see a gradual and progressive worsening of your symptoms. And they can attack a whole different range of things, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to cover all of them, but I really want to talk to you about some of the things you might just want to give some thought to, particularly if you're in the relapsing remitting phase right now. The first thing you need to think about is your home. If you live in a 2-story property, think to yourself, am I going to safely be able to manage the stairs where I live? If you live in a 1-story property, think about, can you get access to all the rooms safely? Can you get outside to the car? Do you need a grab rail fitted to help you climb up that little step to get into your house? Or should you have a little handrail fitted in your bedroom just to help you position yourself and stabilise yourself safely when you're getting into bed? What you need to do is do an audit of your home and think about, are there any things that you might want to change just to make sure that you can still get around and move around your home quite safely? In my case, where my MS attacked me was mainly my spine. So whilst my brain function remained reasonably well, it still does now, he says, touch wood, one of the real problems I had was around mobility and balance. So I had to spend quite a bit of time thinking about where there were handles, were there things that I needed to grab hold of to stabilise myself, how was I going to get on in the bathroom, how was I going to get on moving safely around the kitchen. So you should conduct a little bit of an audit and start to think about the things that you might need and take some steps now to make sure that you can still move around your house safely. After that, you might want to think about your car. I had a very low car, very difficult for me to get in and out of. I now have a higher up vehicle so that I can step up into it rather than having to step down. You might want to think about that. The type of car that you have, if you're still lucky enough and able to drive, think about, do you need some adaptations? Because if your legs are becoming more difficult to control, the difficulty you'll have is obviously accelerating and braking a car. So you might want to think about getting some hand controls fitted. You'd be quite surprised to get a basic push-pull system fitted in a car. Probably will cost you around £500, but that's not a massive amount when you think about the benefit you can get from still being able to get out and about independently. And you might want to think to yourself, should I think about getting hand controls. Would that be of benefit to me? I certainly wouldn't suggest you just go and get them and start driving straight away. I had a few lessons just to help me get orientated with the concept of using my hand to accelerate and brake the car rather than using my feet. The next issue I want to talk to you about is clearly one that is quite difficult for MS sufferers, I think, to deal with, and it is that age-old difficult issue of the bathroom, going to the toilet. MS is a very cruel disease because it attacks so many different parts of our bodies and it can flare up in so many different ways. But you really need to start thinking about the toilet, how you're going to get on. If your bladder, the messages don't get through to your bladder, you can certainly end up in some difficult and embarrassing situations. I certainly take along a couple of devices with me just to help. One is a Uri bag, and that's a device that you can go to the toilet in. It's very discreet and it can fit into your bag or your pocket. There are also other devices. There's a Travel John. You might have seen these advertised where you can go to the toilet and you actually urinate into a bag, but the bag has crystals in it, and the crystals, there's a chemical reaction that takes place. Please don't ask me to explain it, but it turns the liquid into a gel, and then that gel becomes a solid, and that allows you to then dispose of the urine safely. It also traps in the smell, which I think is very good. There are similar devices for women, so please don't feel that you're not catered for. There are devices that can help women as well. So that if you're out and about, keep one in the car, keep one in the glove box. You will never be caught short, or at least if you are, you'll have the ability to save an embarrassing moment. If you remember, one of the first things I spoke about when I started Mr. and MS was relationships, and it's very difficult, certainly for any partner, to deal with and come to terms with and accept that their loved one can be going through such an enormous change and having to deal with such difficult and challenging circumstances as MS and the conditions it brings on. I said right in one of my very first videos, as an MS sufferer, you do need to make sure that you breathe, that you keep grounded, that you don't make any hasty or rash decisions that you might later come to regret. But it's really important that you talk to your family, first of all, about the condition, about the impact it can have on you, and try and work around some different methods to your day to help things remain as normal as they possibly can. If you explain to your loved one the problems that you're having, he or she will be able to see them with their own eyes, but they might not fully appreciate how debilitating it is on you emotionally as well as physically from an energy point of view. But it's really important that you sit down and have that discussion and keep having that discussion. I can't stress to you enough how much and how grateful I am from the support and help that I've had from family and friends through this very difficult period, and it's been going on now for over 10 years. I'm now in a position where I've gone from relapsing remitting to secondary progressive, but one of the great things that I've been able to take a huge amount of strength and comfort from is the fact that my friends that have been with me are still with me and still help and support me, and that I have my family to help and support me as well. There are a range of different resources out there to help you, from the MS Society to MS Trust and also Shift MS. So you can go and read, download, look at the different help that's available. They have lots of different brochures and leaflets that you can read through, tips online to help you deal with this transition, because the one thing that will come to you or normally does come to you, is that if you started relapsing remitting, you will eventually, or you should eventually, move through to secondary progressive. It's so complicated. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a neurologist, but the one thing I do know is that from all the people I've spoken to, and maybe that will be over 100 people with MS, the one thing I can definitely say is they all have a different story to tell. They all have a different route of how they got to where they are now. But you need to think about your life and make the changes and adjustments that are right for you. Listen, once again, it's just great sharing my thoughts and views, and I hope you find them useful. You've got the option to subscribe, and that'll appear somewhere on the screen on the left or the right hand side. Please do. Please forward my video through to other MS sufferers who you think may find it useful and interesting. I am going to be putting up another video next week. Not quite so sure what that one is going to be. I have got a bit of work to do during the week. I think it's going to be on MS and work, but I'll keep you posted. Follow me on Twitter or subscribe to me here, and you'll be kept abreast of any and all developments for Mr. and MS. That's it. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great day. God bless you. See you soon.